Thank you very much for coming along again this evening. This evening we're going to look at a whole series of things, but it has to do with how citizens can stay informed and keep informed about the important changes that are happening around us. In effect, we're looking at a moving game. And it's very hard to sometimes assess what we ought to be doing when the rules are changing in the game right in front of our eyes. Not because of anything we're doing as participants in events, but because of what's happening around us. It's as if the goalposts are being changed by nature at this point, especially in the ecosystem. And we want to look carefully at how you can keep informed to make, in effect, basic planning in your own lives, in the lives of the institutions you work in or have jobs in, and the education of your children, your own education, in decisions you're going to have to make on a daily basis about where and how you get your food, where and how you buy a house, if you have a chance to do that, or where you going to rent, or where you're, in fact, going to move to from where you're studying, or for that matter, what you're going to do after you graduate, if you're studying. Or what you might want to do to change your career right now. All these decisions are decisions that are going to be made about your future. And we want to look, in effect, at this whole question of planning for a sustainable future on a finite planet. You're going to need to know where to turn to learn in the midst of abrupt change that's going on about us everywhere. How can you keep abreast of what's going on, especially in terms of what's going to affect you, your family, your friends, your close relatives, or anything in the institutions you happen to be in? Well, obviously the first place to turn is somebody who knows about what's going on not only in your local neighborhood, but is trained to get in touch with the larger world and the printed world. In particular, if you have no other place to turn as an institution, for example, you're not a student anymore, you graduated a long time ago, and you don't know how to get in touch with things that you normally took classes in, but can't do that anymore. And you don't have a subscription to every known newspaper. Very few of us have more than 2 or 3 at the most. Well, turn to your public library, and particularly the professional reference librarians in the public library. They're very good people to contact initially and ask not only what's going on, but where can I find out about what's going on? They're the ones that can direct you straight to the latest information, usually because all public libraries have access to the newspapers printed in the area where they're located, and many of them have access to the national newspapers and even foreign newspapers that are of use for communities. So get in touch right away with public librarians and with the professional reference librarians who can point you beyond the newspapers to, for example, the magazines that specialize in a topic that may be of interest to you. This isn't limited, obviously, to anything as a subject matter. These are the people who are professional in getting access to all subject matter. So don't limit yourself to a particular topic. You can ask a range of questions. And you can ask for a number of guides. Sometimes they have a citizen's guide to resources, and in self-instruction programs, or you can turn to either they've been provided in printed form, or some of them are online these days. And so you can get access to things through the librarian very powerfully, very quickly. And of course, in a place like Boston, we're surrounded by educational institutions. If you want to find out something about something as vital as climate change, you're awash with information in the Boston area from the universities alone. You can get in touch with MIT's climate newsletter. In effect, it's a blog and you can sign up for it, as they call it, Leading Edge Science and Action, Worldwide Discussion and Learning. You can click on it, from your own computer at home and get right out to this material and their links to it. Find out what's going on campus, who's coming and talking, and the like. You don't have to be enrolled at MIT for this. You can get access to it while you're here as a citizen of Greater Boston area. Obviously, Harvard has its climate-related programs as well. In fact, they have a portal to it called Climate-Related Programs at Harvard. There are scores of them, and lecture series, and the like. Don't limit yourself to any one university. In fact, Tufts, their Office of Sustainability, was the first in the area to take up the climate as an issue and then create a climate initiative back in 1999 under the leadership of Professor William Mumma. They undertook this back in 1999. That's 20 years ago. They've got a long track record and a distinguished one as well, so get in touch with their material. BU has a sustainability at BU office, and they're looking particularly at Climate Ready Boston, as well as Climate Ready BU. Keep in touch with what's going on. They're the first to put a map on their landing page right there, the map of what makes Boston University particularly vulnerable. In fact, if you look at it, we're looking at Boston University on the south side, or lower side, of that basin in front of you, which is in fact a basin. We call it a river, Childs River in Boston, but it's not really a river. It's a puddle. It's a puddle because there's a dam that keeps the tides from coming up the river. It's not in that sense an estuary, in the sense of a tidal estuary. It's a dammed river, and for that reason it's a long puddle between the dam in Boston, which was built initially in 1910, and way up in its headwaters in Hopkinton. It's really quite a long river, but it really isn't flowing as a river anymore. It's a puddle. BU is located right along it. Here, the campus of BU is right there. And that means they're very, very vulnerable, right up here along Commonwealth Avenue, to any shifts that may occur to it, either in extreme weather or in sea level rise or in rainy season experiences. In fact, Kenmore Square gets flooded on a rather depressingly regular basis when there are heavy rainstorms or a succession of them very quickly. And between the Muddy River, which is down here, and Commonwealth Avenue and the BU Bridge, this whole area is extraordinarily vulnerable, including many of the residences of the BU students, but also a lot of the classrooms in the campus. So take a look at the whole circumstance here. The Muddy River is back in here, in fact, but the Boston Common starts the Commonwealth Avenue, Beacon Street, rectilinear fill pattern that occurred in the 19th century. This all used to be a bay. It was known as the Back Bay for a reason. It used to be the Back Bay of Boston. It's all built on fill, which means that it's rather insubstantial and can be flooded fairly quickly were there to be any significant sea level rise, or for that matter, a Category 3, 4, or 5 hurricane would overtop the dam on the Lower Charles and significantly flood a great deal of both BU MIT, which is across the river, and Harvard, which is up here off the map. In any case, you shouldn't limit your understanding of climate to what we have in the northeastern universities. On the contrary, New York has faced some rather dramatic climate events, including Hurricane Sandy, and their universities are focused on a lot of this issue as well, so you can certainly tap into those. The Earth Institute down in Columbia has one of the strongest earth science programs and climate programs in existence in the United States, and you should tap into that as well. In fact, there's no reason to limit yourself to this side of the Atlantic Ocean. As any graduate student quickly learns, there are things going on in Europe as well as here, and fortunately, English is a mode of exchange between a global community of scientists. It's not the only mode of exchange. People read and write in French and Italian and Arabic and Chinese and the like, but even without having to get out of your native language tradition, you can get access to some fairly powerful information sources on climate and climate change through Oxford and Cambridge and Harvard and Yale. All of them have, in effect, online material available for you to view, assess, integrate, and integrate with one another. You could create your own portals for learning about climate change in several different parts of the world. It's already been done. Students at these institutions know how to do it as a ready-made operation to keep their own research going. In fact, we're hearing most of our incessant message about climate change these days from European youth, not from American youth. It's not totally absent in America, but we're not taking the leadership. It was Greta Thunberg from Sweden, a 15-year-old girl who began a strike outside her school, saying she wasn't going to go to school on Fridays until the Swedish Parliament did something meaningful to restrict carbon emissions in order to curb the momentum of climate change. Well, she got some fairly big press, not only in Sweden, but in all throughout Europe, and she started to quit school. She's now 16, and soon to be 17. She's quit school and started to work in an active way around the world. Here she was speaking in New York City. Take a look, it's pretty powerful stuff.
Hello, New York City! It is an honor for me to be here with all of you today on this historical day. And thank you all so much for coming. I heard they were in New York, they're still counting, but at least 250,000 people. And around the world today, about 4 million people have been striking. We are still counting.
Now, this was on September 20th, Friday, September 20th. And she's speaking in New York City, which is fairly warm there. You could see she doesn't have a sweater on or anything. She's speaking to several 100,000 people in New York City, but as she points out, there are about 4 million people around the world on that same Friday making the case, most of them youth. Why? Well, because she's gotten the word out. And the word is very simple. Listen to the scientists.
This is the biggest climate strike ever in history. And we all should be so proud of ourselves because we have done this together. So thank you so much.
Well, she spoke not only to crowds outside in rallies like this, but she spoke more urgently to the heads of state that had been convened by the Secretary General of the United Nations. You may have heard the speech. If you didn't, you should take a look at it.
My message is
really
that we'll be watching.
Quite dramatic in the way she presents it to the heads of state assembled for the summit, climate summit, that the Secretary General had called for in New York City. Take a look. The Guardian covered it in England and posted it for the world to see.
My message is that we'll be watching you. This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe.
Well, she goes on and makes it clear that it's the science that she wants the political figures to listen to. Take a look.
You are failing us, but the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up, and change is coming whether you like it or not. Thank you.
Change is coming, whether you like it or not, whether you're informed about it or not. And that becomes the question. How can you stay informed on something that's coming, whether you like it or not, know it or not, vote for it or not, had anything to say about it, whether you and your friends agree on it or not? It's coming, and it's coming fast, in a way that's so fast that it's very hard to keep up with. The science she's referring to is that which has been assembled over the last 30 years by what's been called the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which every 5 years or so issued an AR report, an assessment report. This was the assessment report 5, about 25 years into the process. And you can get access to this material online. In fact, I'd urge you to look at it in detail. This is the largest collaboration in human history of the scientific community. Go to the directory of the information. Get to the links directly to the working group reports. See what it means for your part of the world, for your occupation, for your university. These are thousands and thousands of pages of reports made available in multiple languages. You don't need to do it just in English. There's French, there's Spanish, there's Arabic, there's Chinese for some of the reports as well. You have now the directory to this, thousands of pages of report. You don't have to go through a university to get it. In fact, it's available online through a number of different sources. And you can get, since that report, the assessment report number 5, the more recent material, including the work that they've done on the changes in the land surface because of climate, and the special report they did on the cryosphere, that is the ice surrounding the world in glaciers and mountaintop repositories and in global ice caps, and the oceans themselves. You can also get far more up-to-date information about local climate circumstances. Climate Boston is one of them. Even the Beacon Hill citizens got themselves together to look at climate vulnerability in Beacon Hill, and in fact all of Boston, in a seminar series independent of any university. And you can get things like the digital dispatches from A World on the Edge, looking at different vulnerable harbors, ports very close to sea level. Then you can link into the more recent and urgent reports that have come out just this October 31st. This is a program on November 3rd, so this is less than a week old. Take a look at some of these reports. They're staggering. This
is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The Warren Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Nermeen Sheikh. Welcome to our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. As wildfires continue to rage in California, and a shocking new report finds that many coastal cities will be permanently flooded by rising sea levels, Chile's President Sebastián Piñera has canceled the upcoming UN Climate Summit.
Okay. The social institutions can't adapt fast enough. The climate summit, which was to have taken place in December, can't take place in Chile anymore, and in Spain, in a very quick way, stepped in. But look at the impact on the food supply. Look at the impact in the forests that are burning in California. These things are now available online, and in fact they're happening so fast that you've got to think out a strategy to plan for a sustainable future on this finite planet. Where can we turn to learn in the midst of abrupt change, the kind of change we're seeing? Well, you can go through places like transition studies, but you also can get updates through what are starting to emerge now, Internet institutes. You can get online and explore these Internet institutes that are subject specific, focus, for example, on sea level rise or on agriculture or on climate change and urban areas. You can also look for online workshops that are being run sometimes by these Internet institutes. These online workshops are fantastic for high school teachers wanting to figure out how to teach this material throughout their curriculum, not just in the science courses, but in the social science courses. And then, of course, for other groups, there are, from these Internet institutes, customized and targeted briefings for insurance salesmen, for example, or insurance executives trying to figure out how they're going to cover the vulnerable organizations and institutions they have insured, or for zoning planning in one city after another, or coastal management areas. People want customized, targeted briefings on what's going to happen in my neighborhood, on my coastline, with sea level that I'm beginning to see. Well, fortunately, these are the kinds of things that are coming forth because if human civilization is to survive, citizens must learn about the limits of a finite ecosystem.
you.